going to highlight my week, some things I've learned so far in the midst of that. I shared with my church board Matthew 28, and so I've been trying to share a little bit of scripture when we gather. We call ours ministry council. Not worry about share another time why that is that way, but I shared the Great Commission with them, and you can go read it. I'm not going to read it for right now, but there's a couple things I highlighted with them that I'm learning, and I think just seeing it afresh. We know this text, we read over it 100 times, but there's a couple things. One is that I'll just throw out for us to think about that's also challenging, that's challenged me. One is when they get to the mountain, it says that some worship, verse 17, Matthew chapter 28, some worship, but some doubted. And what's intriguing is the command that Christ is about to give, he gives to both of them. There was some who were ready and some who weren't ready in a sense of their own mind. They were unsure, but God sent them out. And one of the paradigm shifts that we have to make in the church that I'm realizing, trying to help people understand is it's, you don't have to go get all this training. I'm outside, so you're going to hear some noise, sorry. But you don't have to go get all this training to be able to lead a Bible study, to walk with somebody. And so I think those are important to understand as we walk is we're not going to have everything put together. And you need to be able to walk in the midst of that. Here's the next thing is Christ's declaration, first time where he says all authority has been given to him. It's always been about doing the Father's will and walking in that, but he says all authority has been given, and so this is what I want you to do. And sorry about the shake there. He says go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And of course, here's the big one is this: help them to observe. Here I'm reading out of the Moment ESV. Help them to observe all that I have commanded you. It's this idea of obedience. So this is part of the discipleship, part of the paradigm shift that has to happen, at least for here in the West, is we've been so much about knowledge, not about obedience. You get enough knowledge, just community barf out knowledge. And we need to start asking people, how do we help them to obey in the midst? How do we move them in the midst of that direction? So I shared that with the board, gave them a bit of that conversation, and as we try to move and transition where we are. A number of months ago, I've been here at this point just over a year. And for a number of reasons, they were in the midst of crisis as a board and had been going from crisis to crisis to crisis in the midst of their experience. And one of the things that I had asked them early on being here is, look, you guys got to make a decision. Are we going to be a crisis board, just dealing with crisis, moving crisis, or are we going to lead? I believe that God's calling us to lead. And to do that, we have to get out in front of people. We have to get in their face. We have to walk with them, journey with them, be part of what God's doing. But we got to say no. We're not just going to move from crisis to crisis. We're going to lead. And that conversation really started to change a couple of things. And I'll share one of the things that came out recently. So they did just a healthy annual review on, I've been there a year, and so hey, let's do that. And it wasn't a 1 to 5 kind of score. It was a dialogue I can share if you're interested. What we use, and we're trying to find healthy ways to do that because we're learning we got to do this together. Coming out of that, one of the conversations that floated out of that was, hey, we need to evaluate ourselves as a board. Are we doing what we think we're doing? And what is our role? And one of the things I challenged them was you guys got to step up and we got to lead together. It's not me, it's not you, it's us together. And how do we lead together? How do we discipleship together and walk? And so encouraging them to just get to sit on the board, but get involved in the life of the church. And they're very receptive to that. They recognize it. Their hearts are in a good place. I am blessed to see that and that taking place. And one of the things we've developed in the midst of that overall conversation is they've added this year, starting in this past January, so the first 6 months, now it'll be 7 months now that I'm recording this, is we've added an extra meeting each month and almost each month, and we're praying. And so we have a regular gathering that takes place, kind of the business, if you will, of things. And then we have another meeting where sometimes there's some things discussed, but the main purpose is to gather in prayer. And I think that's important as we look to grow in the area of discipleship and praying. If we're going to reach a community, we got to pray. And I believe, as I have increased that rhythm in my life, as we're doing that as a board, I think there's some goodness that comes out of that. And so that's something that I'm learning from that. This week I also had a meeting with a gentleman named Robert Stovall. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. Sorry, I'll put the link down of who he's with. He's with New Generations, and I just reached out to them because I'm trying to figure out who else is doing this discipleship thing in the North American context, and just got to learn about all the work that they're doing. They're having it's more of an organization started outside of North America. They're trying to develop within here. They haven't done a whole lot in North America. region, if you will, has been around for a while, but now they're trying to develop. And so I got to learn about all of what they're doing and some of their, I guess, workshops, you could say, that are coming up and involved, and those have been encouraging to see that people are trying to do it. But we talked about, some of the stuff that are challenges for us in North America, and really for the most part, there's not a whole lot of people doing this, and we see in a lot of areas, the church, some might say, losing ground, but we're wrestling with how do we move away from the consumerism to a discipleship mandate and accomplishing the Great Commission, which is what we're called to. And there needs to, this book that I'm reading called Spent Matches, there needs to be this paradigm shift, and he talks about that in there that has to take place, and that's hard for people. One of the things that stuck out too for me is just this reminder that as pastors, part of our role is we remind people. It's what we constantly, we're always reminding, and there's lots of repetition and lots of reminder, and it gets annoying at times, maybe even boring for some of us, but that is our role, is to come alongside and remind people and point them. Wanted to, because I mentioned this book earlier, Spent Matches by Roy Moore. He gives a definition for the church, and I really like what he gives. He says that the church is a group of people who obey God, live exhibiting their obedience in community with like-minded disciples, and seek to change their world by discipling the world into the family of God. And what he's talking about, at least in the first part, I haven't got the second part of the book, is we need to look about how do we function together? What is functionally a biblical definition for the church? And he's wrestling through that. He talks through all the challenges that we have as well, and those are we've all experienced them, and we're all there, and so that's part of the journey. The other thing he points out in the book is, and actually came up in the conversation as well with Robert this week, is that one of the challenges of church in North America, or even us doing our reaching the lost, is there is still, even though it's small, it's kind of in the DNA of our culture that church is this box in the corner. It's this thing you go to, and not so much community. And so how do we work within that reality? It's a wrong message. It's a wrong idea, because it's way more than that. But that's one of our obstacles that we have to overcome and work within as we try to seek and accomplish the Great Commission of reaching the lost. So those are a couple of things. I'm just looking through my journal this week of some other things that maybe had sticked out. I actually, you know what? Here's the last thing. I'll close with this. Is this? I was reminded this week in the midst of what I'm reading and prayer and conversation is I am the business right now of cultural building, and culture. You've heard it. Culture eats vision, and it's just this idea that so much of if we're going to make this transition, it's reshaping the culture, and it comes back to this reality that doesn't happen overnight. I might want to see things to move fast. It just doesn't. There is a slow process. Now, guys, like in this book here, they talk about how things are really slow, and eventually, because of the way multiplication works, it can explode. And I think we want to be careful in the midst of that language, but I know that's what we want. Like, let's just face that reality. Let's put that card on the table. We want to see things. We want to see people get saved and transformed. But all the things, at least I'm reading at this point, they're saying, hey, look, this is going to take a while. So keep running. Keep going. And Jeremiah chapter 12 and verse 5 says, if racing against mere men makes you tired, how will you race against horses? Now, there's a context, I understand, which that's part of, but it's just this idea of like endurance. This is about the long game, and I'm praying that God will give me the long game here, and I will be able to see this through as we develop a discipleship movement. So those are a couple things I'm learning. It's trying to walk this journey. Hey, what are you learning in the midst of your journey? Share it down below as I kind of get my rhythm in the midst of these videos. Talk to you soon.